Hey everybody, welcome back to another very amazing and awesome episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and I love talking about cards. That's what we're here to do today, like every day.
Like every day. But, Ted, before we talk about cards.
Well, before we talk about cards, David, there's one very important matter that we should be addressing, and it's how much we love our patrons as well.
Yes, we do love our patrons. So we want to make sure that we give a very special shout out to all our patrons. Daniel, David, Jason, Joseph, Justin, Lewis, Mike, Dominic, Phil, Rob, Robert, Russ, and Sean. And a very special shout out to Russ, who just became a brand new patron and made it right under the deadline to become what I'm calling a legacy patron. So these 15 patrons are now in a special category all unto themselves, and they become a legacy patron, which opens them up for just special stuff that I just want to do, special projects. And so they get copies of those things. If you are interested in becoming a patron, I'll put the graphic right down here so that everybody can see it. You can go to patreon.com/cardtalk2018, and you can become a patron at any level. We would love to see that. And that leads into our thing is we're creating swag this year to give away to everybody at Con of the Rings. So if you want to be available, if you want to try to get that swag, we'll probably cut off the swag somewhere around June, end of June, because we're not a huge podcast, so we can't afford tons of stuff. But definitely, if you get in before June, we can get you swag by Con of the Rings. Which brings us to Con of the Rings. And it's the season now where the Con of the Rings planners are planning the amazing yearly annual event in Minnesota. And one of the people on the organizing team is John Rogers. And John, you just happened to be with us tonight. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me on yet again. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And it's great to have you back.
John, before we get into some of the Con of the Rings talk, how have you been? Let's just talk about what's been going on.
I've been good. It's been a great winter. Great because it is ending as of right now, and it's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit outside here in lovely Minnesota. All the snow is melting. And yeah, Con of the Rings planning team is in full swing. We're meeting monthly and talking regularly and getting our swag put together and working with, graphic designers and event people. And just, it's we're kind of back after that usual November, December break. So it's kind of nice to kind of roll our sleeves up again and get this whole apparatus back up and running, which has now become sort of a regular part of the rhythm of the year, which is cool. So
the council has reconvened to decide.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that. It's pretty nice. Like when we all get together in January, we all kind of get around a table at the FFG Center and, kind of look at each other and like, all right, 2020, here we go. It's a good feeling. So.
Who just so we don't leave anybody off. I know that it's you, and then you have other people on the team. So let's make sure we shout out your team. Who's all on the team?
Yes, we've got Ben, Mark, Aaron, and Nick. So by screen name in Discord, that would be Fishbaugh, who also edits the Cardboard of the Rings podcast, which you may or may not have heard of. McDog3, that would be Ben. Nick is N Bonham. And Mark is at Loophole and tends to lurk a little bit more. But Aaron, Ben, Mark, and I have been together since the beginning. So the 2018 and the 2019 Con of the Rings team. And then we added Nick this year for a couple different reasons, but we wanted a fifth member. We wanted to spread out some of the responsibilities a bit more. And Nick is our lawyer, so we can now sick a lawyer on people, which is kind of fun. Or I believe the term is barrister where you're at, correct, Grant? Am I correct there?
Yeah.
Yes, a barrister, although there are no wigs worn here, despite what you may have seen from like the John Adams HBO miniseries. Nick is a nice guy. He has no wig, but he does have a substantial number of tattoos. That's kind of cool.
Is he now when you say lawyer, does that
Yes.
mean he knows all the rules in the game and is going to be a
Yeah,
rules lawyer, or
a bit of a rules lawyer, but he's actually an honest to goodness, Minnesota bar approved lawyer, like,
okay.
Juris Doctorate, JD.
Yeah, JD. Wow, that's
He's,
impressive.
Yeah, so it's been good to have him aboard. Good to use him to kind of expand some of the different things we're taking a look at, especially with the game sunsetting. That's actually had kind of a secondary effect on some of our plans for 2020. And so we're trying to do our best to make sure that, despite the fact that there might not be as great a need for, say, like a designer interview, when the game essentially has completed its design phase, we're trying to sort of fill in some of what could potentially be gaps with some other great, events and things like that. So
That is phenomenal. I am partial to the designer interview only because you asked me to do it last year, but completely understand that, it's hard for, by October when it rolls around, Caleb and crew will have not designed a card for the game in 2 years, and it's hard to it's hard to have a designer who hasn't designed anything for the game in 2 years. Give credit to Caleb, though. He does an awesome job and always talks to the people and does good stuff. So I can understand the need to kind of do something a little bit different there.
Yeah.
So what's going to be? Let's slowly ease into the con, because this is why we're on here, right? What kind of things are going to be the same from last year, right?
Sure.
Like, so as we walk into the FFG Center, we're going to see, the registration. We're going to see the sign that says, private stuff. What's going to be the same that you're carrying over from last year?
Yeah, so same time of year. So this year's going to be first week in October, so the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of October 2020. Also same, we've already partnered, in fact, with the same hotel to provide a discounted room rate at that hotel block that's about 2 city blocks away. So that will be the same. Schedule will be largely the same sort of opening and end time. So from sort of morning on Friday through the close of business for the FFG Center on Sunday evening. So all that will remain the same. We're still planning on doing sort of a Thursday night informal as people get into town, come hang out with us at a local eatery or establishment. We're still planning on doing an off-site event of some sort on Saturday, again, for people to kind of get out of the convention center and go drink some beer and talk and, play party games and stuff like that. So I think all that will remain the same. Very last thing that's definitely going to remain the same would be the fact that we are highlighting again a group extravaganza. So we're selecting a certain series of quests to be played throughout the course of the convention. Not that every player has to complete every single quest, but that as a whole convention group, so all 130 of us or so, that we would defeat every quest by Sunday evening and have unlocked and then secured all the achievements that we're in the process of writing right now. So all that stuff will remain the same, in addition to some sort of swag for everyone, t-shirt sales, and still great raffle prizes based on people earning those achievements throughout the course of the weekend. So I would say 80% of what we're doing is still sort of baked in, is just sort of a good, relaxing time to come play without a lot of like timed events or things you need to get to. As you know, Dave and Ted, from your experience last year, it's barely a convention in terms of the sort of the relaxed nature of each day. So
yeah, I mean, I'll speak to that personally, and then Ted, if you want to chime in, feel free. But I've been all around the world, and I can't find my baby. I've been around the no. I've been all around to different conventions for different things now, and I will say that when you say that it's the least conventionist or convention-y convention, it is. I mean, it just seems like instead of having game night with 3 other of your closest friends, you're now just having game weekend with 130 of your closest friends. You sit around, nobody's yelling and screaming at each other. There's no issues going on. There's decent food at the FFG Center. You can get drinks, you can get a beer, you can get, so it's definitely a laid back, relaxed scenario, as you would expect with a community like this. So
Yeah, it's a tremendous gathering. I had a really fantastic time going for the first time last year. So great. Got to give you props, John.
Thanks.
You guys and your whole team that put that together. And yeah, David said it pretty well. It's more informal compared to like a traditional convention, the way people like think of that, you know. But it's kind of what's great about this community is it's kind of like I always think of that line from Step Brothers where they like become best friends. They're like, "You like dinosaurs too? Do we become best friends?" I feel the same camaraderie when I go to this convention. You know, it's
Yeah,
like
no,
you
it's-
like Lord of the Rings too. Did we just become best friends?
yeah, yeah. It's no, that's very true. It's always an honor to hear that. It's funny. It's like we kind of joke about not liking to do a lot of work, but in honesty, during these off months, we try to work very hard in order so that sort of the moment the convention opens, it can just sort of happen and just sort of roll out without a lot of fuss. And people can just enjoy themselves. That does include us. You know, I've said this I think before, but I'm really grateful the amount of time that actually we as even organizers get to play and kind of mingle and hang out with people, because you know in the end, if we were stuck behind a sign up desk all weekend, we'd be pretty bummed out too. And there's ways for everybody to feel like they're helping out, but also just really having time to just relax and have a good solid weekend of gaming and friends and good memories. So.
Yeah, and just as a personal aside, I'll say this, that right now I'm talking to two of the guys that last year I met for the first time in person, and being John and Ted. I've had talked to you for a long time. I have both of your cell phone numbers, and I've texted you a million times and things like that. But and both of you here the first thing that both of you said to me was, "Come here, I'm a hugger."
Yeah.
So it's interesting that Ted and John, you both said that. So I hope that stays the same.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, without trying to break any of your licenses and your rules that you have to follow for the convention, for the con, is there what kind of new things are there going to be for this year's con? I'm excited to see what you say.
Yeah, I will say there's a couple things that we're trying to make sure happen, and there's a couple things that will definitely happen. So I'll talk about the things we're sort of working on first. As I mentioned, with things like designer interviews sort of not fully making a lot of sense anymore, we're hoping to do, and also honestly with Fantasy Flight Interactive folding and the digital game not really having a presence at the convention this coming year. We're hoping to actually sort of up the ante in terms of trivia this year. Okay. So we know we have in the works right now some conversations with some folks about maybe perhaps doing 2 trivia events, maybe like a Friday and a Saturday event. One that is more fan participation as it was last year, and perhaps another one that could be maybe some podcasts and some bloggers going head to head on their Lord of the Rings trivia. Maybe some designers in the mix.
Are we gonna have to get Grant over? Grant, you're gonna have to get if somehow we're involved in this, we're gonna have to get you over here, because I'm not very. I'm good at asking the questions, but never answering them.
But so again, that's sort of just in the pool right now where we're thinking about it.
Sure.
The other thing, which I know a lot of people have either seen on Discord or through Twitter, and we're at Con of the Rings, or Con of Rings MN on Twitter, is that we have some really, really incredible T-shirt designs this year that I'm very excited about. So Relento. Again, his screen name, Relentless Relento, I believe on Twitter, also known as Samuel Lopez de Victoria, if I remember that correctly. So he's been doing graphic design for us for a few years. So he did our Con of the Ring shirts originally, did the little pipe logo on the sleeve. He also did the deck box designs for last year for us. And we decided this year to repurpose those deck box designs to be on shirts this year. So when ticket sales do open up, there will actually this year be the opportunity to purchase 2 different T-shirt designs if you wish. Just stick them in your cart alongside your ticket. They don't have any lettering on them whatsoever, no Con of the Rings logo whatsoever. It's just a sort of Free People's collage with Anduril in the middle, and some pipes and some hammers and some horses, and some vines for the elves that kind of represents all the Free Peoples. That'll be done in blue with a white logo on the chest, and then we'll have a dark gray T-shirt with the evil logo, sort of the Eye of Sauron, Tower of Barad-dûr logo. But we just those deck boxes were so well received, we didn't want to just set away the art for them and just kind of let them languish somewhere. We really wanted to sort of return to them for a second year. So we're very pleased to see that happen, because Relento's design was just sort of, people were in awe last year, and we wanted to get that to people in another way. And we're really hoping that these shirts could be, worn sort of wherever, not with a logo on them, not with any wording, but a little bit more abstract, where you could, if you're Derek from the Grey Company and you're going to a metal concert, you can just, drop on that Eye of Sauron shirt, and if you're going out to the local pub, you can put on your Free People's T-shirt and feel like, regardless of people's interest in Tolkien, they would take a look and be like, that's a really neat design. Like that's a shirt that kind of catches the eye. So we're pretty excited for that this year. So those are just a couple of things. And then lastly, we settled a few weeks ago on what the group extravaganza will be for this year. So we usually have either chosen the saga. We chose the entire saga in 2018. In 2019, we did the Angmar Awaken cycle and the Dream Chaser cycle. And after looking at all of the post-convention feedback we received, all the surveys that we sent out, it just made sense to just move to the next portion of the story. So Con of the Rings 2020 will take place both in the Sands of Harad and in the Ered Mithrin cycle. And since the Ered Mithrin cycle features dragons, we couldn't let this opportunity slip by without
say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. No.
It'll be the ruins of Belagost.
Oh.
It will not be the Battle of Lake. There was some fierce debate on that point, but
well, you could always drop both of them.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're definitely going to feature the ruins of Belagost, just as what's sort of been recognized as one of the most fun print-on-demand quests that just offers a really incredible experience between the loot that needs to be found, the two boss monsters. There's a lot of twists and turns in that quest. So Sands of Harad, Ered Mithrin, and the ruins of Belagost will comprise our 1819 quest suite this year. And I think we'll all have a good time. So
man, exciting. I was waiting for you to say Battle of Lake Town. That would have been punishing.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Debated it over and over again, but we just thought, maybe not quite yet. So, and if at any point we were to mix in the Hobbit quests, say in 2021 or beyond, we want to keep Lake Town sort of secure for those two boxes. So
right.
I'm
not trying to get way ahead of the game, but you just said 2021, and I'm not asking you to make like horrible predictions but there's no talk of saying this is the last year of the con yet.
No,
right?
No, that is nowhere in our conversation at this point.
Okay.
I expect we will have maybe a little bit of turnover in our planning team at the conclusion of this year. That's actually part of the reason we brought Nick on, is just to make sure that sort of there's never a brain drain if someone steps out. Mm-hmm. But I think assuming the 2020 convention goes well and the FFG Center still wants to have us, I would expect that there would be a 2021 convention as well at the very least. So especially while we are not formally affiliated with them, the long expected party crew that's been building these player run cycles to be releasing relatively soon, I think we can honestly be assured of some pretty good content for hopefully years to come. So that said, I don't see there's any reason necessarily to shut down the convention as long as there are people that still want to attend. So
yeah, as we are recording now, Lure of Middle Earth is just wrapping up its 20th season. They've been playing Middle Earth the Wizards, and that hasn't been in print for 15 years, and there's still enough people that want to get together.
Right.
And I guess the point is the market isn't saturated with these conventions ever. I mean, you can go to Gen Con, but that's not exclusively a Lord of the Rings thing. And I think that you have the one North American event for Con of the Ring, or for LOTR stuff. So, if there were 1,700 of these things, I could see there not being a need, or, whatever, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, thank goodness that you guys are still thinking of hosting this
Yeah,
moving into the
no,
future.
it's a joy. It's a lot of fun. I think it brings us all a lot of just it's good to be creative. It's good to sink your teeth into something where sort of the only payoff, but the best payoff is the people rolling in the first day. I think I've expressed to you before, Dave. Just every year the convention opens and we open the doors and people are lined up. It's just kind of like a reminder, like, oh my goodness, they came. Like it's still, it kind of springs into being at that
Right.
moment. It's
They
just,
love us. They really love us.
yeah, it's a great experience. Like, oh my gosh, you showed up. You showed up. Like you actually thought this was going to happen, and I don't think that feeling will ever go away. So.
So a little bit more about the con.
Yep.
Are you still planning on doing achievements and global achievements and that achievements? I'm not asking you if you have any of them planned out. I mean, if you do and you want to spoil one, that's fine. But if you don't, then that's great.
Right.
But that plan is still there, right?
Yeah, still is there. So we will still have global achievements, although I'm sure we will tweak them, especially in light of all the contracts that have recently come out. We will still planning on having quest achievement specifics, all that linked to the raffle system to give away, hopefully a great pool of prizes. I would say the only other thing is just with ticket sales going on. Best thing people can do if they're listening to this right now is, if you're the least bit interested, go to our website. It's conoftheringsmn.com. So the MN is for Minnesota. Scroll about, just a little bit down the first page and you will see a link to sign up for our newsletter. That newsletter we are very careful about. So we basically publish March through the convention, and then we shut down for a few months. We're never going to be flooding your inbox with anything. And that is the best way to learn about ticket sales and when they go on. But we are planning for ticket sales to open up April 6th, 2020. So we're recording here right now on March 8th. So about 28 days away. And if last year's experience is anything to go by at all, we plan to be sold out maybe 8 to 14 days after April 6th. So mark your calendar, set a timer, and be sure to jump on that website and get a ticket in. And then, of course, if you're not able to make it, you can always return your ticket to us for a refund before August 1st, and then we get that ticket back out in the wild for someone else to snatch up. So.
Right, because you do like a waiting list and things like that for the.
We try to be very careful about that, and even the waiting list is first come first serve. So we will, once if a ticket becomes free, say like in June, we offer that to the first person on the list for 72 hours, and if they don't take it, it rolls on down the list to the next person, and so on and so forth. So.
And how many attendees are you looking at? I think the first year you had 90 or so, and then you went up to 130. So that means you're adding 40 every year. So this year you're doing 170. Is that what it is?
We are keeping it capped at 130. So okay. We took a look at the way things felt at peak last year around Friday evening and Saturday afternoon, and it just made sense to stay there. We could we cram in more? Yes, but people have really gotten back to us and said this feels right. The lines aren't too long for food up at the front. We have space to store our games and our coats and things like that, and we're really going to try to keep that feel. Again, not being a profit-driven organization, there's not a lot of need for us to really pack people in. We just don't feel it makes sense. So.
Yeah, and at peak, I mean, just a little insight for anybody out there who hasn't run a conference or a convention before is that, when you have 130 registrants, you never get 130 in the room at one time. Usually, right. At max, you're probably at 90% of that. So in that room, I think the 120 or however many was in there at the most, I think that felt just about right. You weren't cramped, you weren't, in somebody else's game when it worked out. So that was good.
Yeah. And the room can technically hold by fire code, I think 180 players. We know plenty of people here in Minnesota that have been to FFG events where all 180 of those seats were taken up, like for Android Netrunner tournaments back in the day. And it's not comfortable. I mean, it's doable, but it's not like a fun experience. So we're trying to avoid that feel of packed in like sardines.
Right. Do you know how much tickets are going for? Has that been settled yet? Or is there still some final negotiation with that?
We are close to setting our final
Okay.
prices. I'm happy to talk about it. I think the base ticket will still stick around the $45 mark, with a T-shirt coming in for $22, and then we're going to offer a slight discount if somebody decides to put 2 T-shirts in their cart. I think it'll be 1 T-shirt for 22 or both T-shirts for 40.
Okay.
Just again, we're just trying to keep that price level down, but yeah, 45 for the base ticket still seems to make sense.
Okay.
We jumped from I think $35 to $45 from year 1 to year 2. That was really just to help us break even and set aside about $1,000 each year just to jumpstart the following year's payments.
Right.
So
Yeah. And I guess no event is complete without talking a little bit about it, but is there going to be swag offered this year other than the t-shirts? Is there going to be a swag? Like you talked about the deck boxes last year that were phenomenal. That what do you call it? The living hinge or something like that?
the living hinge. So
Like,
there will be swag this year. I'm very pleased to say that it looks like Relento is back to do the design work for us. I won't say what it is, but we are hoping that if what we have in place right now and sort of the plans that we are laying, if it all works out, we're hoping it will be a sort of fitting tribute to the current sunset version of the game. And I think that's probably about all I need to say. But we're going to try to do something to sort of honor all the places we've been, hopefully in some way. So
so it's going to be a Dr. Seuss book.
yeah.
The places you've been. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot here, John, but you were gracious enough to come on the show, and we always love having guests on the show. So, what else is there about the con? We've hit a lot of it, but what else is there about the con that you need to tell everybody that you haven't? What things have I not asked you about that you want to make sure you get out to everybody? What's going on here? What's the last thing you have to say about the con?
I mean, I think that's about it. You should come October 2nd through the 4th, 2020. ConOfTheRingsMN.com to sign up for our newsletter. Ticket sales should be going on April 6th at about the $45 mark. We try to make the whole experience good. And if there are any questions at all, especially for first-time con goers, best thing to do is to drop on the community Discord server and go to the Con the Rings channel. And unless it is nighttime here in the U.S., chances are you will get a response from a member of the planning team, usually within about 2 minutes. It feels, but we try to stick to that too and keep a very close eye on all that. So yeah, by all means, come. And with just it being the 3rd year of the convention and everything, I think very well established. There's also a lot of great card talk among them, a lot of great podcast episodes out there, blog posts, past attendees reflecting on the 2018-2019 experience, and expect nothing different in terms of I think the joy that people experience and the gratitude that they've expressed in those different places. So
Okay, well there you have it, everybody. Get your tickets for Con of the Ring. You can get them online starting April 6th, probably. I don't want to, things can happen between now and then.
So, that's cool.
That's the intention. So keep your eyes open for those. And I will tell you, as somebody who never has gone to a gaming convention specifically for a game before. For one game, is that this is probably the best thing in the world to do. If you love the game, go. There's just not any easier, better way to put it. It's like I don't know. It's like the really. I'm a teacher, so writing the letter of recommendation for that kid that is super smart, but also has like a lot of street smarts and just is like the whole package. And they want you to write a letter of recommendation for him, and you just like say accept him. Like that's all you do for college. Accept him. So my letter of recommendation for Con of the Rings is just go because it's that awesome. It's everything that you ever wanted to have. So
cool. Thanks.
Yeah. That's my endorsement.
Woo.
John, I'll expect that check coming in the mail.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Now we know how he gets his swag.
Yeah, right. That's how I'm able to put out swag is John Rogers actually makes it. No, I'm just kidding. But John, this is Card Talk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So John comes on once a year, and when John comes on once a year, we usually talk to him about the con. But for some of us, the most exciting part is to talk about a card with somebody who is not Ted Grant or myself.
Yeah.
So, John, you picked a card, and I think last year it was Unseen Strike, which I loved Unseen Strike, and I have since come out with with a thing where I'm going to go around and have everybody, all my guests on episodes, sign the card in which they talked about. So when we ran into each other in February in Minnesota, and you signed Unseen Strike. So now you have to sign my copy of this card. I was almost going to say it, but I will let you, John, say what card we are going to talk about.
Sure. I believe it's about to appear over my shoulder here.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
So here it is. Card I would like to talk about today is the Long Defeat, and I'm happy to read it if that's
yeah.
Cool
Please do so.
The Long Defeat is a 1-cost lore attachment. It is condition traded. And it reads, attached to a quest card in play, limit 1 per quest. Response, after attached quest is defeated, each player either draws 2 cards or heals up to 5 damage from among characters he controls. And the quote, of course, which I must read because I am a lore nerd and I want to have Grant like me, from Galadriel, from the Fellowship of the Ring. For ere the fall of Nargothrond or Gondolin, I passed over the mountains, and together through the ages of the world, we have fought the Long Defeat.
Let me just say something about that that quote, as I think that the flavor text, I think, is also reminiscent of J.R. Tolkien himself and how he felt about kind of life, and that regardless of what you do in this life, you're still fighting the long defeat of what is going to happen eventually at some point. So I think I heard that somewhere, that he kind of felt the long defeat about his own, about I don't know if it was about his own life or about humanity in general, but it's like, or maybe he just felt that about the elves, like the elves were going through the long defeat as highlighted here. I don't know.
It's been a while, but I believe he mentions this quote twice in the published letters. If anybody has a copy of that, I know he refers it. He speaks about it in a reference to just, again, life in general, the way he feels about sort of the shape of Western and specifically British culture and modernization. But he also talks about it quite a bit in regard to his own Catholic faith as well, that he feels that sort of his worldview is primarily one of the long defeat. There will be a long defeat followed by a eucatastrophe, and that one is sort of required to do the best he can with what he has, with the knowledge that there will be a defeat and then a sudden turn towards good from the forces of the divine. So I think that line is kind of an interesting sort of, I think, glimpse into his life philosophy, if we can wax a little bit on that. So
I think that's the most in-depth we've ever gotten about about flavor text on a card.
Yeah.
And
in the interest of full disclosure, I mean, that is what drew me to this card in the beginning. Is I actually really have been attracted to this line in the novels for years, as again, it informs a lot of my own way of thinking about things. And I think just sort of growing older and seeing, one's efforts not always bear fruit. So when this card came out in 2015, I believe, released in the Battle of Carn Dûm, I remember first just saying, well, this obviously has to go to a deck because they're referencing one of my favorite conversations in the novels. But then it turned into a sort of a mechanical win as well. So
it's kind of funny because you're talking about building a deck because you like what about half of our listeners just rolled over because they're like, oh, I can't believe you're playing a card. That's like so, but I can't believe what he's playing a squirrely whirly deck. I'm just taking the fun cards and putting them together and see what happens. But Ted, let's talk a little bit about the card. What do you think of the long defeat?
It's terrible. I hate it.
Okay, good. Should we ring this? No, I'm just kidding.
The long defeat. The long defeat. It really sort of encapsulates lore, because lore is known for its two primary things: card draw and healing. Primarily, are its two notable functions that many cards do, and this sort of gives you both things, or the choice of either thing rolled into to one effect. And for one resource cost, it's a very efficient card, especially in high player counts. Right, high player counts, you could be drawing 8 cards collectively for one single resource. So it's a very, very efficient card, and that I very much like about it.
Grant, what do you think?
I think it's got its purpose in some decks. I wouldn't say it's going to fit in every deck, but it's definitely got its pros. I mean, drawing the cards, or even if you're running in the Haradrim cycle with all that archery, it can come in handy for healing up a lot of damage from that if you're choosing to heal the 5 damage. It's got its pros. Would I put it in every lore deck? Probably not, but definitely a couple, especially from running side quests.
Yeah, and this came out in the Angmar Awakens, the Battle of Karn Dûm, I guess, John said. And then this is the Angmar Awakens. Is that the cycle that was the side quest cycle?
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, very heavily featured, both player side quests and encounter side quests in the deck as well.
Yeah, so I mean, this is because it just says a quest card. It doesn't have to be the main quest or a side quest. So that's good. So, John, how do you use this? You're the guest on the show. Enlighten us into the long defeat.
Sure. First of all, I do not use it in quests that feature one quest stage. Just to throw it out. That's a very, very important thing to keep in mind. I have screwed that up every now and again. So a couple things that I like to use it for. As I think was mentioned, the thing that's nice about this card is that it offers, again, sort of two things that lore already does well: card draw and healing, but in one card. So the way that I tend to use it is sort of one of these utility cards that, if I have a deck that's playing lore in any way, there's usually about 2 copies of the long defeat that make its way into that deck, and they're almost never cut. So in my case, regardless of whether or not I am playing player side quests, I will tend to drop it in because I find that it helps after an initial stabilization of the board. A lot of players will tell you that they feel that the first 2 to 3 turns of a quest are the most important, and I would agree with that. But the thing that I like about the long defeat is it actually provides sort of a bonus, sort of a tempo boost, if you will, after that initial stabilization has occurred, to sort of catapult you into the mid game. So often, if you have it killed that setup enemy or moved through the first quest card, you're looking, okay, what's the mid game going to look like? And what you really probably need are, in that case, either some more cards in your hand, so you've got more options, or you've taken some damage from that initial onslaught of enemies, and you need to sort of make sure that your heroes are going to survive, key allies are going to survive. And this card really provides both of those things, or either of those things, rather. And since each player gets to choose what he or she wants there, whether or not they want the 2 cards or the 5 damage, it really becomes this situation where everybody kind of gets their choice out of this card. So like, you contrast it with something like Deep Knowledge. Obviously, Deep Knowledge is a little bit easier to play because you can play it at any time, not just when you defeat a quest card. But the thing is it only offers the card draw, and it offers that at the risk of 2 threat, which, while not a lot, is still maybe substantial for certain high threat decks. And the great thing about the long defeat is that once you complete that first quest card, each player gets to make his or her own choice, the thing that they need the most at that moment. And then there are some interesting sort of corner cases to this as well. Since a player can spread out that 5 damage being healed among different characters, if hero Elrond is on the table, there are ways in which each one of those instances of healing damage, if you spread it out among 5 characters in front of you, each of those instances of healing damage can get boosted. So that's kind of an interesting, fun trick. And then, as we mentioned, since you can place it on side quests, whether or not one of the games, I believe I counted, if we set aside Nightmare, I think it's if one of the game's 46 encounter side quest comes out, this is a way to sort of incentivize completing that encounter side quest. And if you're playing one of the 10 player side quests, which already get you some sort of goodie, this is just kind of the kicker on that, which might make that side quest a little bit more interesting to the other players around the table about, yeah, let's go for that side quest, because maybe not only are we dropping our threat by 5 with backtrack, but we're all also drawing 2 cards. It just kind of sweetens the pot. And the only one paying that cost, if I'm at the table, is me, because I'm the one playing the long defeat. So I'm the one sacrificing the one resource to give that universal benefit to the table. So that's, again, I go on about this all day, but those are sort of the things I see as like some of the great benefits of the long defeat. So,
Well, and so when I'm thinking of you mentioned side quests. When I'm thinking of side quests, there's probably the least useful side quest in the game from is explore secret ways, in terms of like, and so this is one way. I mean, let me back up for a second. We did do a show on explore secret ways, and there are some cases to use explore secret ways, which is fine. But if you get explore secret ways, which is a lore side quest, out, and you put the long defeat out, you get, like you said, you can make it twice as good, or in this case, this may make explore secret ways 7 times as good because of that. Right. But like, I mean, so if the other lore side quest is Scout Ahead, I guess, which which is fine too. It's not the best, but it's still a way to make those lore side quests really good. But the thing that I wanted to make sure that I said that I really like about this is, it gives you choice. So if you want the cards, you can take them, or if you want the healing, you can take it. And B, it's for every player. You're getting one resource that's going to affect every player, and that's right. In my book, that's pretty dang good.
Right.
So, yeah, Ted, what's your gut telling you here?
It's long defeats. Its only downside is that it's sort of like a sleeper agent type effect. It has a delayed effect. It gives you no immediate bonus.
Right.
That's its only downside, is that it's like if you need cards now or you need to heal now, you don't get it. And of course, late game too, it's not very effective because you're probably trying to make a big push to either finish on the last quest stage. So even if you're playing player side quests, again, if you're near the end of the game, you probably just want to push through rather than, delay a turn to reduce your threat or draw cards or whatever. But it's got that sexy 1 cost where you're like, ooh, for 1, I can, and then even in just the average 2-player game, 1 resource to draw 2 cards for each player. That's very, very efficient.
Yeah. And Ted, I think you're exactly right. It is one of the few cards in the game that is well and truly dead once you head to the second quest stage.
Yeah.
It's there are some cards that are sort of almost dead by that point in the game. Like you don't want to play like a late game Steward of Gondor. Like it might pay for itself and that's it. It doesn't actually advance your board state at all. But the long defeat, once you get the last quest stage, is truly useless at that point, unless you're right, you decide to drop out a side quest and work on that and delay for some reason the completing of the quest itself. So
yeah, but then in that case, what would you rather do? Complete the main quest and beat the thing? Like, if you need those 2 cards now, you're not going to get it. Like, right. Unless I don't know. Like, yeah. So
well, go
ahead, Grant.
It could be the fact that you've got enough to pass through a side quest, but in passing through the main quest, you have to take an attack from a big enemy, and you don't have enough health on the board to sustain that attack. So you might opt to go for the side quest and get that 5 healing across your characters. That might be enough to save someone from dying in order to defeat the enemy and then progress on.
You're stretching, Grant. You're stretching.
Hey, there's always corner cases.
There's always corner cases for everything, but for one cost, this card is good. I think that the other thing that I like about the card is that it's not restricted to a deck type. I think that this can go, as long as you have the access to lore, I think that this can go in to any deck type effectively, whether it's Sylvan or Dale or dwarves or the one I see stands one deck, but he's not going to play that in this deck, but I guess, but it's not restricted to any one sort of deck, which is probably why John and I like to play it, because
it's got a universal thing. I mean, there are ways to juice it and make it better. As I said, Hero Elrond to basically double the effect of that healing in a lot of cases. I think the other thing is a little bit more of a secondary bonus, but I think just to obviously playing this with, say, Thurindir as a hero, so that you can open with a player side quest and then sort of incentivize that player side quest further via the play of the Long Defeat, are both really good heroes to choose. But you're right. What I like about it is that it is just sort of a straight up utility card. It is similar in that way to something like Daeron's Runes, where nobody ever says, "Oh, well, I'm playing this lore hero, so clearly that means I don't play Daeron's Runes." Like, duh, you just play it, right? And this is similar to me, just sort of like I just play it. Again, it will often get cut in solo, although it still has its uses there. But just the second you even jump to 2 players, if you start doing the math on it, I just feel like, if it's either one resource for 4 cards drawn across the table or one resource for 10 healing across the table, I mean, it's just ridiculously efficient at what it does. Obviously, the downside being that's all weighed against you have to complete a quest card to make it fire off. So that's why I think that's what balances out the card.
And it doesn't even add any like quest points to the the card, which a lot of those, not a lot, but some of those attachments really add quest points that that were released in the Arid Mithrin cycle. Add 1 quest point to get this, or like Elfstone, So
Also, I found fun to play in Saga Helm's Deep, since the enemies are the ones placing the progress there. And then what's great is you could just lay the Long Defeat on every stage there and just say, "Oh no, the orcs entered the Hornburg. I guess we better draw 2 cards. The orcs breached the walls. I guess we better heal 10 damage." That's kind of a fun thing to play. That feels particularly, I think, Sylvans at Helm's Deep aside, it does feel particularly thematic to say, the darker things get at Helm's Deep, the better your board state might get with the Long Defeat.
Right. Okay. How about this? You're saying Long Defeat in the Orcs. What about Long Defeat the Elfstone in the Orcs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Drop it all on.
Yeah, just do it all. But I guess the Elfstone goes on a location, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, they'll pop that location first, though, I think.
Sure. In terms of 5 damage healing, what other cards heal that much damage?
Beyond Hospitality.
And that costs
5, I think.
Yeah, right. Well, now you see what I'm getting at, right? I mean, I guess this, like the Sylvan Tracker, can heal 1 per ally that you're 1 per character that you ready, which could be up to 8 or 10, I guess. But I don't know of very many cards that can heal. Drawing 2 is. I don't want to downplay this, but drawing 2 is like nothing. You can draw 2 cards pretty easily, right? But healing 5, that is pretty significant. And if you're going to need to heal 5, you're going to need to heal 5. 5 is not an insignificant amount of damage around the board, or around your state, around your area, around your play area. So if you have 5 damage on characters in your area, man, I mean, that's huge. And to give you a choice, like, hey, so I have 1 damage somewhere, to give you a choice to be able to draw 2 or to heal that 1 damage. That's where I think the power of the card is, because it's always going to hit. You're never going to whiff on this card.
Right.
Yeah. And as for other healing items that heal more than 5 damage, you have Healing Herbs, Atlas, and the Waters of the Nimrodel.
Right.
Yeah.
And even I think when we look at our allies, I mean, I think the designers did a good job of making sure those allies are restricted in various ways. So like I play Sylvans a lot, for example. So Galadrim Healer is a very common card that I play. But in that case, she's only healing 1 damage from each hero.
Right.
Eoreth heals 3, but off of 1 character. The Warden heals 1 damage off of 2 separate characters. So it's like there's all these ways in which the other healing in the game is often very restricted in a way where you're often wasting something or inefficiently healing.
Mhm.
And the nice thing is you can split that 5 up however you want on your forward state. And I think that's another reason it is so powerful.
Oh yeah.
It's got a great strength though, the fact that it's an attachment that has healing.
Right.
So a couple of neat things you can do with it is it can be recycled with the Hammersmith, Airborne Hammersmith, so it's like you long defeat the first quest stage, and if there's 3 or 4 on that particular scenario, you can put it back into your hand and then play it again.
Right.
And it also has a cool interaction, I think, with Reforged, which is kind of really neat, because you could actually, if someone, let's say, discarded it to an effect, and you are going to be making enough willpower to complete like the first stage, you can say, oh, we're going to be making enough progress. I'm going to use the action window to reforge Long Defeat right now to immediately get the benefits of it.
Right. Yeah.
It has that flexibility.
Right. It can be pulled out with Master the Forge as well. So even in, say, like although it doesn't give any benefit to Haldan, the Haldan deck, which is, putting attachments on locations, it seems, wise to throw this in as well, maybe. And Master the Forge tends to go in that sort of deck as well. So it's pretty easy to pull out, I find, of the deck in some different ways. So.
Yeah. I used to play this card a while ago, and then for some reason I got away from it. There's just so much new awesome content coming out with this cycle that you kind of want to play all the new awesome stuff, and then you kind of put away some of these older cards. And I don't know why I got away from playing this card, but I need to get back to playing this card, I think.
Yeah, it honestly is one of those. It's like I feel like almost every time I've played it on a table, everyone is really happy to see it, and then somebody says, "Oh yeah, I forgot about the card."
Right.
It's part of the reason I wanted to bring it on today. It's a weird unsung hero utility card.
Yeah.
Even sitting here on Hall of Beorn right now, it's not particularly popular. It is 2 rings. It's in 398 decks on Rings DB. Which is not great, honestly. This is not a 5-ring card, so that was kind of a surprising thing to me when I was looking it up earlier this morning. But I think it deserves a little bit more love than that. But you're right; it's not flashy. It's just everybody's happy when it triggers.
Right. So. It's just one of those things like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then when they get the effect of it, that's when they're like, thank God that was there.
Yeah.
Because again, it's never going to whiff, right? So people should be happy that it's there.
Dave. This is like how people treated you in high school, right? They're like, "Oh, Dave's here." I didn't think, but we're really, thank God. By the end of the night, by the end of that party, they were like, "Dave is here," and if he hadn't been here, things could have gone really wrong.
Right. I'm triggered now. My high school years were not my favorite. So. I could tell you stories that would make the hair on your toes curl. But this is not talk about Dave's high school career time.
Yeah.
So,
you never left, mate.
Yeah, I know. I loved high school so much. I went back there this is my 17th year teaching high school. Well, what last gasps do we have before we ring this? Ted, what do you have left to say?
I think we nailed it all. It's a highly efficient card, even though its effect is, it doesn't give you anything immediately is its biggest weakness, where you're like, okay, I need something here to turn this game around. Long defeat. Okay, nope. Right. If you're still stable at that point, John made a great point. It's gonna kind of propel you to go even further. But it loses some flexibility near the end of the game, like we covered.
Grant, what do you have to say?
I love the artwork. The card itself's brilliant, and we've covered all the main points, but the artwork is phenomenal on this card.
Yeah, it looks like a statue that's crumbling The arm is falling off of it, and so that's good stuff. John, any last gasps about this thing?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, like it, efficient, not super sexy, but it gets a lot done, and you're right, sort of hopefully propels you into a good solid mid game, and I think that can't be underestimated. So.
Right. Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know or is new to the podcast or may have forgotten, when we have cards on the show, we like to ring them on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the one card to rule them all, and 10 is the card that gets thrown back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made. So, John, you're the guest on the show, so we'll let you decide. Do you want to go first, second, third, or fourth in terms of ringing this?
I will go last.
You will go last. Okay. That sounds good. So I'll go first, if you don't mind, boys.
Take it away.
Okay. So I really like the long defeat, but I play primarily solo, and I think that this is where that impact in solo play it still has. But a lot of times, like we've said, when you're playing solo, you need something like right now. You need to be able to cancel a shadow effect. You need to be able to do stuff. You need to be able to heal right now. So, it becomes a little more tricky to use solo. So, but I still like it solo. It's still good because when you defeat the quest card, you're like, oh, okay, now I get my 2 cards. Now I have 5 damage that I can heal. So it's good. So I think that I'm going to give this card 4 rings. Okay, so Ted, what do you think?
Well, you guys know where I die on the hill, and that's that every card is good, and this card certainly is good in terms of utility. I'm still gonna have to give it a 6, only because it doesn't give you any immediate need, and high player counts definitely see more benefit of it, but it doesn't really take many. It takes as low as 2 to really get your money's worth out of it.
Yeah. Grant, what do you think?
I'm giving it 4 rings also. It's a good card. I don't put it in every deck, but I have placed it in a few decks, and it's always worked out fairly nicely. So yeah, 4 rings.
Okay, John, you wanted to go last.
I will give 2 ratings. In solo, I would give it a 5 and place it squarely in the middle.
Okay.
I think in higher player counts, it creeps up probably towards a 3. Simply because of that flexibility, it kind of fixes whatever problem each player is having at that moment. And 2 key problems are usually I don't have enough cards and I don't have enough healing. So
right. Yeah, I can totally get that. That's good. I usually give people a hard time if they want to give 2 ratings. That only happened when we did Sylvan February. So I guess, John, we'll make a special exception for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're allowed to have 2 ratings, I guess. So. Yeah. Well, John, thanks again for coming on the show. We always love having you. We always love talking about Con of the Rings, and I'm sure that the community and our listeners and viewers love to have you on the show too, because you always give such awesome information, A, about the con, which we all love, but B, you always have great insight about the cards that we played too. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, and hopefully later on in the year, Ben and Mark and Nick will probably have an interest in coming on as well. So
hey, yeah,
we'll keep info flowing to you. The spoilers will abound, we're hoping.
Well, Aaron did come on the show. I just want you to know, so he didn't come on to talk about the Con of the Rings. We did talk about the con, but we didn't, it wasn't this sort of introduction. But as always, anytime any of you guys want to come on the show, you're always welcome to. There's no hoops to jump through. You just say, hey, let's come on the show, and you can definitely come on the show. So.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it, gentlemen.
Okay, everybody, join us again as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day, everybody.
And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed cardtalk2018.libsyn.org for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.